Welcome to Dayton Superior Learning Center. This session, we will discuss the use and application of plastic and metal bar supports. Once again, thank you for your time. Dayton Superior has intended this training for training purposes only. Any technical specifications for products mentioned in this training, please refer to www.daytonsuperior.com. Plastic and metal bar supports. The purpose of a bar support is to properly locate the reinforcing steel at its proper elevation in the concrete slab. Bar support in place here. This is our Dayton Superior's castle chair supporting rebar in concrete is placed. This is an excellent chair for a slab on grade because it has a wide stand base on it. We make other chairs for different applications based on whether it be bridge DOT, highway, or commercial application. As you can see here, some of the different chairs we have for basically slab on grade, caissons, retaining walls, etc. Why do we want to use plastic bar supports? Well, plastic bar supports have grown over the years in as far as functionality and strength, basically because of their non-corrosive nature. They're less expensive. They typically have a concrete gray color, which actually helps them blend into the surface. They're very lightweight. They have a small footprint. Typically, what we're talking about small footprint means that once it's placed in the concrete slab, if it is going to have an exposed surface on it, typically that is a very small area that you can see. Recycled material. Also, all of our plastic bar supports are typically made from all recycled material. Applications: slabs, walls, tilt-up, foundations, precast products, obviously, and the DOTs. They are becoming very, very well accepted in the marketplace and by iron workers in putting them in place. The plastic bar supports a lot of times will surpass the strength requirements of the metal bar supports. For slab on grade applications, our castle chair is an excellent opportunity. The chair actually has a built-in sand base. This chair here comes in, will spread out the load put on the top of the chair from the rebar, so it will not sink into the subgrade. The other option with this chair, other feature with this chair is it has a bi-directional top, which means that if you can turn it 90 degrees. And once you turn it 90 degrees, you will basically gain or lose 1/4 inch in height elevation. Single mat of rebar, typically here you're going to have your concrete coverage, which will be spelled out in the set of plans from the engineer. You would put a chair in place here based off of whatever height requirement is needed. Here, a 3 1/4 inch chair is required for elevation, and that's in that slab. For the rebar to be positioned 3 1/4 inches from the bottom cover of the slab. We have our EZ chair. The EZ chair supports rebar from the formwork. It's typically designed to work from the formwork because it has a very small footprint. Typically will support sizes 3 through 9. Cover height anywhere from 3/4 inch up to 6 inch. This is actually one of the strongest chairs in the marketplace for its price point. The all chair also comes with a sand base, so you can use it for a slab on grade application also. Here you can see the chair in place on the parking structure going up in place. A lot of guys like it because one, it's strong. It's very easy to tie off to with the rebar, and it has a very small footprint. Now, if we're getting into a little bit taller mats of rebar where the easy chair won't work, we can go to the tower chair. The tower chair is typically a much sturdier chair, heavy duty, supports the upper mat of rebar from the formwork, supports everything from 3 to 11 bar, and coverage heights from 2 3/4 up to 10 inches in height. Use the tower chair with the sand plate. It is also available for those applications where you need the taller application of rebar being supported up in the upper half of the slab on grade. You do have a sand plate that can be attached. Here you can see the tower chair being put in place and supporting over the straddles the bottom rebar. The rebar can now pass underneath the chair, have the midway point, and the upper half of the chair actually is supporting the upper mat of rebar. We have a paving chair, typically used for slab on grade application. Typically will attach to a 3 or 4 bar, depending on the size of the rebar, obviously. The chairs typically provide a coverage from 1.5 to 6 inches, so in cover. The chair will actually adhere to or attach, clip right into the rebar. So if you need to remove the rebar, you can then pick up the rebar, move it, the chair will go with it. Then you can replace the rebar back with the chair on it, already attached. For post-tension slab applications, we have our post-tension cable chair, coverage of 1.5 to 3 inches. Typically, this is used for strand that is typically run across the post-tension slab, and then there'll be post-tensioned or pre-stressed, one or the other, depending on the concrete construction methods being incorporated. Usually you use this for use on slab on grade. We see a lot of house foundations and commercial properties that actually have post-tension slabs now that are getting away from a 6, 7, 8 inch slab. They are now going with a 4-inch slab that is post-tensioned. Side form spacer wheels, typically used to provide coverage in wall type applications. Can be used either for concrete, solid pour cast in place concrete wall with forms being put in place. Can be used where you are actually going to drop the rebar cage into the concrete form. Here you have the EZ Lok Wheel. It's probably the strongest locking wheel spacer in the business. Has a medium to heavy duty type application. It has a positive lock on the rebar size in the center of as you can see, the rebar will fall into the center. You have a nice bearing surface there from the EZ Lok wheel that'll connect to the rebar so that you won't get a lot of twisting and turning in the in the plastic support. Positive lock fit sizes 3 through 6. Wider hub means less racking. The EZ Lok Wheel comes in multiple sizes depending on the concrete coverage and the rebar associated with it. Concrete cover is the distance from where the rebar sits on the hub of the wheel to where the outside of the wheel will concentrate in it or make contact with the outside edge of form. The space wheel. This is a light duty spacer wheel. Typically it will handle 3/4, 3/8 of an inch to 3-inch in concrete cover. Supports mesh up to number 6 bar. Coverage and support size depend on the wheel selected. Continuous bar supports. Continuous bar supports are intended to accurately locate, firmly placing reinforcing steel in a select position. Before and during the placing of concrete, the reinforcing chairs will actually suspend the wire mesh in place or the rebar in place at a select height so that the concrete deck can be poured. And the rebar, once finished, once the concrete deck is poured, the rebar will be intact and in place right where the engineer requires it. We have our Strongback Bolster, which is 3/4 to 3-inch in overall heights. They come in 2.5 foot lengths or 30-inch lengths. They snap together. Can be snapped together to basically form whatever length you're looking for. So no lap splicing is required on this bar support to get it to make sure that you maintain the same connectivity throughout the project. We also have our EZ Connect PSB. The end design allows for faster and secure connection. Non-corrosive material, heights range from 3/4 to 3-inch, available in 2.5 foot, 5 foot, and 10 foot lengths. Typically, additional pieces can be attached on so that you do not have to have any lap splices in this product either. The ends actually are instrumental to have a one male, one female on each end so that you can continually snap them together. We also have plastic slab bolster upper. Now this upper material has a runner on the top that will support the rebar, but it also has a base on it that can be used to either one, support off of a fit grade fill, or it can be used to support an upper mat of rebar when it's being supported off the bottom mat of rebar. Typically comes in 30-inch lengths. Legs are centered at 2.5 inches on center, so it is a very strong chair. Can be snapped together, just like all the other plastic slab bolsters, primarily from 1 inches to 5 inches in height, and you can snap the pieces together as long as you are need for the project. Here you see the slab bolster going in place. Slab bolster upper then is typically used in between the mats of rebar. It spans across the transverse bars that are typically supported, and then this will be with a longitudinal support of rebar or bar support, and then you will have a transverse bar sitting on top of that also. We have concrete Dobies. A concrete Dobie is basically a concrete brick used to support steel, reinforcing steel. You will see this on slabs on grade. Primarily, it was a West Coast product originally for all what was, for precast products, etc., that were going to be formed up and poured. So the first slab on grade. Typically, this is a great and inexpensive method of how to attach a bar support or support your reinforcing within the concrete slab. The Dobies are available in a array of different sizes and colors. We have a combination Dobie that will actually cradle the rebar. We have wire Dobies, probably the most common because it has a tie wire already embedded in the wire Dobie itself, in the concrete Dobie itself, so that you can tie wire the bar support or the Dobie to the rebar. We have plain Dobies, which is just a plain basically concrete block. And we have a dowel Dobie, which basically enables the customer to actually anchor the dowel in place. And you can also turn it on edge to actually have the Dobie cradle the piece of rebar. We also manufacture out of the plastics material concrete panel pads, which basically are used in the precast yards. In between the panels, once they pour a panel, they can then take it outside to let it finish curing. These pads actually are put in place here to allow air to migrate in and around the slab. And typically used in this form of application, where all of the slabs, this way you have air flowing through to ensure proper curing. Let's talk about metal bar supports. Metal bar supports. Let's talk about Slab Bolster. Slab Bolster typically has legs spaced at 5 inches on center. It's used for supporting rebar in a slab. Typical heights range from 3/4 to 3 inch and 1/4 inch increments, and they come in 5-foot lengths. Now, when we talk about Slab Bolster upper, we have the top runner in place here, which the rebar will be sitting in place on. And then the 2 bottom runners on the bottom were actually used to support across rebar. You can also support over compacted fill. Typically, the runners are basically support the wire with additional layers of rebar. Typically, this is where you'll end up seeing this used in the middle between the 2 mats of rebar, such in DOT and highway projects. Beam bolster. Beam bolster and beam bolster upper are similar to the slab bolster products, except for the fact that the legs are now 2.5 inches on center. So we now have twice as many legs in your beam, in your support member. Thus, it's primarily designed as a heavier duty product. As you can see here, slab bolster and beam bolster in place. Both of them are available in different configurations as far as plastic tip, plastic dip, galvanized, or epoxy coated. Where would we use slab bolster upper? On a lot of DOT work, you're looking at stay-in-place decking is now being used in lieu of removable wood forms because of cost. So this SIP decking goes in place. The contractor will put this in place. set his rebar on top of it, and pour his concrete deck on top of this, and then it stays right in place for the life of the bridge. Different ways of how they attach this. This is actually attached with either a concrete beam with little metal clips that they actually have cast in the beam itself in the concrete. And then what they'll do is they will weld angle iron to it to make the attachment. If they are using a steel girder, they actually use a decking angle, support angle, which runs across the top of the beam to actually support the SIP decking. Slab bolster wood plate. Occasionally you may run into this application where you need a slab bolster with a plate on the bottom to actually fulfill or grade applications. Available in heights from 3/4 to 3 inch and 1/4 inch increments. Typically it has a 20 gauge plate welded to the legs of the slab bolster. We can also get continuous high chair for those taller applications. Legs are typically spaced at 7.5 inch versus 5 inch. So we're spreading the legs out a little bit farther, but we're using a little bit larger wire to actually accommodate, make up for strength loss because of the legs being spaced out a little farther. We actually use a little bit heavier wire. This will actually ensure that the rebar will not crush the continuous high chair product. We can also do continuous high chair upper. We just added 2 runners on the bottom of it. This is for a typically, it's a lot of times a taller slab or a thicker slab of concrete with 2 mats of rebar in place. The heights in this come typically 2 inches to 15 inches in overall height. So like I said, you have a lot of adjustability with how you want to form up your concrete reinforcement. The continuous high chair is also available with a plate. The only difference between the slab bolster wood plate and this one with plate is that the plate is now split in 2, primarily because of you'd end up with a wide plate of like 6 inches in width and be kind of overkill. So what we've done is we've attached 2 thinner plates to each leg and let it run parallel with the direction of the bolster. This actually will help reduce cost. You can set the slab bolster up. It will work in subgrade type applications and or anywhere where you could find that you may have to have a solid plate running underneath your slab bolster. Here's your slab bolster, beam bolster, and continuous high chair upper. Typically on the bottom here, you've got your beam bolster. You can see how close the legs are. You have slab bolster in the middle. And then on the outside, top side of the photograph here, you have a continuous high chair upper material. And you can see how the legs are actually spaced a little bit further apart. Individual high chair. We have individual high chairs in plastic material, so it's only obvious that we would carry them in metal products. Typically, they're available 2 inch to 40 inch. Realistically, you don't usually see too many of them over 9-10 inches in overall height. Once rebar gets above that type of height, for an individual chairs, there are other methods that are easier and better to actually reinforce your concrete slab with. The individual chairs we can get with a plastic tipped, or a plain chair. Wire diameter will vary based on the height of the chair, just so we don't manage to have anything taken oddball shape, or we make sure we maintain a good strength of product supplied to the job site. Reinforcing data. Typically, used to looking here, we have here's the standard CRSI table for rebar, sizes up 4 through 18. You can see what the weight is of every individual chip bar per size per lineal foot. And this is what's used to actually gauge how much rebar will be sitting on top of the chairs. We follow and recommend all the CRSI recommendations for all slab bolster and individual chairs. They are all covered under chapter 3 within this book. We also have an epoxy rebar spray. So for any time you run into a situation where you have an epoxy chair and an epoxy rebar, and they happen to get damaged or nicked, the coating needs to be gets damaged in transit, use, or application, you can actually spray an epoxy coating back on in place of it. Typically, it's going to meet an ASTM D3963 for repair and defects of coatings on rebar. And thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at training@DaytonSuperior.com, or you can email me direct at chuckhoke@DaytonSuperior.com. Thank you.